Dean DiLorenzo, trustees, faculty members, family, graduates, greetings. I am so honored to have been invited to speak to you this morning. In preparing to speak, I felt as I did when I was being inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I thought of so many things that I could tell you that have crossed my mind over the past few weeks leading up to this morning. But don't worry, I'm not going to bog you down with 10 things or a whole list of things to remember. I want to be as simple as possible and leave you with one message to hold on to. I reflected back to my high school years when I served as senior class president. I have to admit, when I was graduating, I addressed my classmates and cannot for the world of me, for the life of me, remember what I spoke of at that graduation ceremony. The thing that I vividly remember, though, was walking across the stage and picking up my diploma. I beamed with joy and pride with that accomplishment. It was the realization that I had made it. 12 years of commitment invested, and I made it to the end. I also realized that I was far more fortunate than my mother and my father, knowing that neither of them made it to that point in the education system. That moment of succeeding academically and graduating from high school was not just about me, but it was also about those teachers who did their best to equip me with the tools that I would need to get me ultimately on that stage to get that diploma. On my way to that destination, I turned out to be a pretty decent football player in high school. So much so that I was fortunate enough to earn a scholarship to attend college. Before I could be admitted, I had to take and pass a physical examination. So, I showed up on the day of and the time of the appointment with the doctor that I made the appointment with. I underwent and passed the moment. I passed the physical. My sister Ruth, who is here, gave me money to pay the doctor. So at the conclusion of the physical, I reached into my pocket to give that doctor, Dr. Roswell N. Beck, the money. And at that moment, Dr. Beck looked at me and said, "Son, I don't want your money. I want you to make something of your life." Growing up in the segregated South, I had been told many times from so many adults, make sure you get your education. While I heard those words, get your education, so many times it did not always register with me as to what it meant. You know, as a kid growing up, you hear the same thing so many times it becomes blah, 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 blah. But when Dr. Beck looked at me in my eyes, refusing the money and imploring me to make something of my life, those words and that gesture stuck. Over the many years that I've lived, I've gotten literally thousands of words of encouragement, especially on the golf course. But this was probably the most memorable. I would come to realize that Dr. Beck was my family doctor, but he was also the family physician for every other Black family in Florence, South Carolina in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. He had a front row seat and a clear view to see how every Black child in the community struggled to get out of poverty and work to gain a better life for themselves, their families, and others they could inspire. I could just imagine how many young people he saw who may have started on the right track with great ambition and high hope, but may have fallen short because of poor decisions and circumstances of life, let alone those who never even bothered to take on the challenge to be their best selves. Ironically, in the last 2 years, with a heavy emphasis on the 50th anniversary of the 1964 Voting Rights Bill and movies like Selma and The Butler, I get a better understanding of how obstacles and discrimination may have played a role in why many from my community may have lost out on educational opportunities. In so many ways, I know that he, as a doctor, much more than I could have ever, he had seen much more than I could have ever imagined as a youth. It also became clear to me why so many folks begged me and others of my generation to get our education. At so many points in my life, Dr. Beck has been one of my greatest inspirations. I remember those early rough stints of college life, wanting to fit in as one of the cool jocks instead of giving in to smoking pot, drinking alcohol in the dorm room. Thoughts of Dr. Beck encouraged me to make wiser decisions, to stay focused and on track. At the conclusion of my college years, I earned what I considered to be my most important recognition and achievement, earning my bachelor degree in education. At that time, it was my mother who cleaned houses for a living and prayed for me every day to make good choices and to stay safe. Her smile was the one that beamed the brightest. What stood out for me on that graduation day was remembering how many students I entered college with and how many were missing on that most important day. While my family played a significant role in helping me during those college days, my encounter with Dr. Beck still stood in the back of my mind. Becoming a professional football player at the age of 22 in New York City in the late 1970s and 80s, being paid what I considered a lot of money, and at the time, and wrestling with the temptations of being able to get anything I wanted at any time, could have been a real challenge for me, but it wasn't. Now, I'm not going to say that I've been a perfect angel all my life, but the words of Dr. Beck made me realize and understand that what I did so many miles from home affected people I represented. I came to understand the spoken, but more important, unspoken expectation of people who cared and loved me. As I stood on the sidelines next to my coaches and teammates prior to every game I played as a New York Giant, with so many things racing through my head before kickoff, those words from Dr. Beck, "Make something of your life," always played in my head. Even today, with so many years removed from playing football and living my life abundantly, long after my last game and after the cheering has stopped, those words of Dr. Beck continues to govern how I live my life and how I treat those who appreciate what impact I may have had in touching their lives. There is so much that I could say to you this morning at this juncture of your life. You have excelled through many years of schooling and lifetime experiences. You have stayed the course to complete your mission. As you move forward on the next leg of your journey of life, you will be presented and confronted with many opportunities. The greatest might be the opportunity to influence those in your family who will look up to you, especially if you are a first-generation graduate, as I was, or perhaps someone you encounter in passing that can be influenced positively by your words or a simple gesture. I would like one thing to resonate with you. After you pick up your degrees, you take off your cap and your gown, I'm acutely aware that many of you have already achieved a certain degree of success. I want to challenge and encourage you, as I was, to make something of your life and make a difference in someone else's life as well. Thank you, and congratulations to all of you.